aren't Nell?
You're listening to Sing It Pink, the story of the Pink Singers, London and Europe's oldest LGBTQ+ choir. I'm Ali, an alto, and for episode 3, I'll be your guide. I first became a Pinkie in 2014. I loved singing when I was younger, and as an adult, I realised that I was really missing it. I was excited about the range of music the Pinkies were singing, and I was hoping to meet other like-minded queer women, maybe even a partner. During my time, there have always been loads of women in the Pink Singers, but I learnt that it hadn't always been that way, and I wanted to know why. Looking back at photographs of some of those early rehearsals in 1983, I see there were a number of women present. You heard Cass describe the scene in episode 1, a group of men on one side of the room, and then on the other, some women sort of huddled together. But who are these women? Well, answering that question has proved to be quite difficult.
Well, I just remember a group of guys. I mean, it was all guys. There were no women, I don't think.
It seems that a lot of those early male choir members don't clearly remember their female counterparts. Perhaps that's understandable. It was 40 years ago. And as you'll learn, the women didn't stick around for very long. Saying that, though, the men we've spoken to don't seem to have as much trouble remembering their male counterparts. I did a little more digging into the archive and found copies of some of the first ever choir registers. Within the handwritten list from 1983, scrawled onto a couple of bits of scraggly paper, there are a number of women's names. There's Robin, Maria, Jo, Jane, Angela, Kaz, all of who have ticks next to their names, which suggests they attended a rehearsal. This must be the women in the photograph. I'd really hoped to find and speak to some of these early Pinkies, but all this time later, and without any lasting threads of contact, it's incredibly hard to try and track them down.
London was quite divided. I think there was a distinct separation between gay men and lesbians.
As the choir progressed into its first year, the numbers of women had dwindled. Many of the women involved in those early days were sometimes described as radical lesbians. Born out of the feminist movement, these radical lesbians believed in separatism. They wanted women-only spaces. And so the Pink Singers, which was a male-dominated group led by a male musical director, didn't feel like the right fit. Some of them went on to join an all-women feminist choir called the Prima Donnas. They were named as such because they claimed that they were famous before Madonna was. Pre-Madonna. Separatism was upheld by both lesbians and gay men. Many wanted to exist as individual groups rather than under a lesbian and gay umbrella. And so, by the end of 1983, the Pink Singers had become a solely gay men's chorus, as shepherded by their musical director, Robert Hugill.
The Pink Singers are London's only gay community choir and are a dynamic ensemble of 12 gay men whose eclectic taste in music runs from Scarlatti to Sondheim. We welcome people new to choral singing.
When Michael Derrick joined in 1985, 2 years after the choir's formation, he noticed what happened when more women did try to become part of the Pink Singers.
When women turned up at the beginning of a rehearsal and they asked, can we join? They were told that it's a male voice choir, but there's these other choirs you can join as well. And it was like that. I was a bit shocked at first because I was aware that a lot of organisations I'd been involved with were male only, but not because women were excluded, but because women didn't want to join. And if they did, the male environment wasn't very comfortable for them for various reasons.
By September 1988, the choir had gone through a period of change. Robert Hugill had stepped down as musical director and Michael had taken over. He decided he was going to do things a little differently.
So when I became the music director, in about week 2 or 3, some women came along at the beginning of the rehearsal and said, can we join? And I just said yes. I didn't think twice about it. I said, yes, here's some music. Look, just sing the tune. Right, sing along, okay? Right, just do that at the moment because we're a male voice choir at the moment, so there's no soprano or alto parts. Just sing along. Is that all right? Yeah, we'll sing it. And they sang. And at the end of the rehearsal, I spoke to her and I said, that was all right? Yeah, we like the music you're singing. That's very good. And then I said, are you coming back next week? Because if you are, I don't want you to just be singing along the tune or something. I need to give you something different to do as a separate section. They said, yes, we are coming back. So I quickly rejigged a lot of the songs. So, for example, if there was a verse where the tenors had a little solo, I gave it to the new women instead. I said, you're not singing it anymore. These women are going to sing that bit. And the bit where we all sing in unison at the beginning of the song, only the women sing at the beginning, so I managed to feature them like that.
But these new changes weren't always welcomed by some of the men in the choir.
In the pub afterwards, I had a little deputation from a couple of men, and they said, are these women joining the choir? I said, yeah, they are. And they said, how's this going to work out? We're a male voice choir. What's going to happen? I said, well, I'll just do some more arrangements. I'll just write them in. And they come to me to try and talk me out of it, which of course I wasn't going to do. Some men left. I don't know why. I didn't follow up and say, hey, why have you left? Do you want to come back? They left and I thought, well, you've gone.
Michael was happy to have a more mixed chorus, and he wanted to make a statement to let people know that the Pink Singers was open to both men and women. So for Christmas 1988...
we did our first concert. And in order to make sure that women weren't just a little section at the end, so if you looked at the choir from left to right, it was soprano, alto, tenor, bass, from left to right, as it usually is in a choir. And I put all the women in the front row, no men in the front row at all. And we come onto the stage with back row first, and then the next row. And you do it that way so that people on the back come on and receive the applause and can be seen directly by the audience before anybody stands in front of them. You do that. And then the middle row comes on. And when the women walked on, there was cheering. There was a burst of applause. And that was the moment I thought, oh, something's happened here. This is expanding the choir, increasing diversity, bringing more people in, getting more voices.
The choir was entering a new phase, and with that came new music.
And we were all getting on very, very well, so I decided that it was time to try a cappella.
One of the first songs Michael prepared for this mixed choir was an a cappella version of the civil rights anthem, I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free, written by Billy Taylor, with lyrics by Dick Dallas and made famous by Nina Simone in 1967.
I wish I knew how it felt to be free. Right at the end, the film, my voice was on top of 4-part harmony, so we had 5-part harmony for that little bit. And then we were off.
As the summer of '89 rolled around, the Pinkies were invited to the BBC. But not just to any old studio. They were asked to give a performance on the rooftop of Broadcasting House in central London.
Good morning. How many of you remember the good old days when Arthur Askey and Richard Murdoch had a flat at the top of Broadcasting House? Obviously no one here except me. But you probably do remember a time when Terry Wogan got up to all sorts of japes on the roof of Broadcasting House with the Director General. Well, that's where we are today, and very, very rum it is. We have no DG here, but we do have the Pink Singers, a group of gay and lesbian choristers who are going to send the music of Rodgers and Hammerstein into orbit to give a special send-off to International Gay Pride Weekend and to our holiday.
Keep it gay, keep it light, keep it fresh, keep it fair, let it bloom every night, give it room, give it air. Keep your love a lovely dream and never wake it. Make it happy and be happy as you make it. Let it sing like a day, keep it free, or you'll frighten it away. Take it easy and enjoy it while you take it. Keep it gay, keep it gay, keep it gay.
It was the morning of Pride, 24th of June, 1989, and the Pink Singers sang their playful rendition of the Rodgers and Hammerstein 1953 song Keep It Gay down the airwaves of BBC Radio 4's Loose Ends. As you might have noticed, despite Michael's earlier attempts to bring more women in, the choir is once again sounding very male. Sandy Wilson, a former Pinkie who was there on the day, is looking at a photo of the Loose Ends appearance. Just to set the scene, it's a beautiful, blue-skied, sunny day, and the choir are stood on the roof of the BBC building with big, beaming faces at around 8 o'clock in the morning.
Michael Derrick is the conductor who's standing there. There's me behind Stephen Rice-Miller with hair and dark glasses. Stephen stood next to me lots of times in the chorus. Great singer. The guy in the blue striped shirt is Andy. I think that's Fred next to him. The wonderful Philip Rascola, who seems to have been at every gay event since the 1960s and has always been there. Lovely man. The far right is Richard Seymour.
Sandy points out the men in the group, and then he spots somebody else.
In front of him was the only woman in the choir at the time, who's the lovely Barbara Stevens. We just love Barbara.
There'd been another mass exodus of women leaving the Pinkies. This time, not due to separatism or because of a lack of enjoyment or cohesion, but because most of them were not from London, and over the course of the year they had decided to leave the city, with only Barbara remaining. I'm looking at this photo now. Barbara is standing at the front of the choir. She's wearing a high-waisted pair of blue trousers and an open-collar white shirt tucked into a black belt. She's got short blonde hair spiked up on top of her head. And as she stands at the front of the group, facing towards the Loose Ends presenter Ned Sherrin, she's smiling. Sandy and Barbara were good friends.
But she was all heart. Barbara at the time worked for an organisation that dealt with people with learning difficulties. And she was the one who got us the first set of Pink Singers sweatshirts, which were made by that organisation. So we paid and we helped that organisation a bit through that. She was just lovely. She was caring. She was wonderful. She drove her Lada estate as if it was a truck. As I understand it, she used to train people in the army and driving trucks. And she drove her Lada as if it was one. She was wonderful. But she had been there, she'd done things, she'd sung with women's choirs, she came to us, and she enjoyed working with gay men. She was fun. She was a fun person, and she was welcoming to everybody.
The mixed culture of the Pinkies had become ingrained. As the choir entered the late 80s, they very much wanted to be a lesbian and gay choir. I can't help but wish that the Pink Singers had come to this form of mixed arrangement a bit sooner. In that scenario, we might still be in touch with those early women members today. And then we'd be able to hear their stories and learn from their insights. We'd be able to preserve their memories as part of Pinkie's history. They deserve to be there, but we're missing that valuable information. And that's evident in this podcast. It's wonderful to hear from Sandy and Michael about these people, but it's also true that for this period in the 80s, we're hearing about them through the men that can remember them, rather than hearing from the women directly. Still, back into the story. This change had become set in stone, and Sandy was keen to mention this whilst broadcasting from the BBC rooftops. He took to the airwaves and called out for a new set of women to come along and join the Pink Singers.
Now, Sandy Wilson, do you not the other Sandy Wilson, no relation, no. I take. The choir, what do you require? Because you've got about 12 people here. You could do with more, I suppose, couldn't you?
We can always do with more men and women singers, but we would like some more lesbians to join us. Our 3 lesbian singers that were with us at the festival have left to go to New Zealand, round Europe, and stay in Germany. So we are looking for more women.
I had finished university. I'd finished my teaching degree, so I've just started teaching. In my last year at college, I was engaged to a guy, and then I fell in love with my best friend. We were living in London. That relationship broke up, and I was single, very lonely. Nobody knew I was gay. I didn't know what I was, who I was really. I felt lost. But I think that's when Pink Singers came into my life.
It's September 1992. And over the past couple of years, the Pink Singers have been advertising for more singers to come and join them.
London's lesbian and gay choir, the Pink Singers, need more lesbians. They rehearse on Sundays 1:30 to 4:30 at the London Lighthouse.
The Pink Singers welcome all. Singers from the lesbian and gay communities are welcome. Commitment and enthusiasm are as important as musical experience.
When the Pink Singers don't take themselves too seriously, they are wonderful. They are asking for new members, lesbians as well as gay men, to join them.
Throughout this time, they have amassed new members, many of which are women. There's Kath, Jan, Ricky, Val and Brenda, as well as many others. Amongst them is Helen Johnson.
It was a very confusing time, and I can remember, because back then we didn't have social media, we didn't have representation on TV, and as a single gay woman who was just beginning to come out to herself, I didn't have the contacts or didn't know what was out there. I can remember going into Silver Moon bookshop, and the lesbian department was downstairs, and feeling really, really, panicky about going down those stairs into the women's part of the shop, because it felt so alien and so strange that I was having to come to terms with something that wasn't really expected.
Feeling like an outsider, Helen was reading lesbian writings, trying to understand more about her sexuality. She then became part of the Pink Singers to try and find community, though in the beginning she didn't feel like her brand of lesbian fit in very well.
Lesbians are women that wear sandals, butch women. That was the kind of, I suppose it was the general stereotype of what people thought it would be to be gay from a heterosexual point of view. But I didn't see myself like that because I was quite feminine, long hair, makeup, feminine clothes. So I sort of didn't fit into the stereotype of what everyone thought being a lesbian was at that time. So when I first went to the Pink Singers, I was the only one in a dress or a skirt, and I was the only one with lipstick and long 1980s permed hair.
It wasn't just Helen's style that felt at odds to the perceived lesbian way. It was also her high-pitched soprano singing voice.
Well, I felt really, really self-conscious and very, very nervous. And I did hear a comment was, well, you're singing soprano, which you are just reaffirming what femininity should be. And wouldn't it be better if you sang in the tenors to kind of, so you're not doing that stereotype of being a girly soprano. They were fighting against that stereotype of what a woman should be. So not just a gay woman, but for in terms of feminism as well. Because when I was there, the women who were in the Pink Singers, there was that feminist side to it as well. If you're singing soprano, you're kind of letting the lesbians down because you're reiterating that view of what female looks like, the pretty, the soprano. That's the outside world's view of what a woman should be. So it's kind of letting the side down a bit by not being more butch and short-haired.
Though Helen supported the other women to express themselves in the way they wished to, and was herself a feminist, she wanted to remain true to herself.
I stuck to my guns, and I think I've always felt quite sure of myself in what I look like, and in a way I wanted to show that, well, yeah, I can be gay, I can sing in this gay choir and represent myself.
As one of the Pinkies, Helen discovered more about what it meant to be gay in the context of society.
I'd read some of the Radcliffe Hall books. To me, that was what was being gay was, but it was just me in my own little world. And then joining the Pink Singers, it broadened my perspective. It wasn't just about one person, one relationship. It was a much broader societal issue.
And this moment in time was particularly contentious. Just a few years earlier, in 1988, Margaret Thatcher's Conservative government had introduced a law known as Section 28.
Bill Given Gay Clause. The Guardian.
Save the children from sad, sordid sex lessons. Daily Mail.
Grossly offensive homosexual propaganda put into libraries. Daily Mail.
Government to ban schools' promotion of homosexuality. Daily Telegraph.
Crackdown on the gay lessons. Daily Express.
Section 28 banned the promotion of homosexuality by local authorities and in schools across Britain. Teachers were forbidden from discussing the possibility of same-sex relationships, and many libraries removed literature or films which contained LGBTQ+ material. It arrived just after the media had ramped up their hateful, fear-mongering headlines throughout the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and Thatcher had capitalised on the homophobic wave moving throughout Britain.
Children who need to be taught to respect traditional moral values are being taught that they have an inalienable right to be gay. And children who need encouragement, and children do so much need encouragement, as so many children, they are being taught that our society offers them no future. All of those children are being cheated of a sound start in life. Yes, cheated.
Section 28 was met with uproar from the community.
Clause 28 is the worst attack on lesbian and gay lives this century. Clause 28 is an attack on teachers who attempt to suggest that lesbian and gay relationships are acceptable. Clause 28 is an attack on lesbian and gay theatre production. Clause 28 is an attack on projects that house lesbians and gays. Clause 28 will encourage discrimination, bigotry, and violence against lesbians and gays. Join the March on London, April 30th, 1988.
LGBTQ+ people marched through the streets. Activists abseiled from the public gallery of the House of Lords, and the actor Ian McKellen came out publicly in order to voice his opposition.
Stars led the anti-Section 28 march through London on Saturday, the biggest lesbian and gay demonstration ever held in this country. Capital gay.
At the time, Helen was a primary school teacher.
We had to be really careful about our curriculum and not sort of teaching about certain artists, musicians, because of their sexuality. It felt very unfair and very unjust. And it also, on a personal level, kind of reinforced that it wasn't okay to be gay. And yet I'm teaching your kids, but I think people, we didn't tell, I didn't really come out at work. In my job, I'm influencing young people, which is really what Section 28 is saying. We mustn't influence young people with this issue. So it kind of gave me a personal message of, well, you're in school teaching these kids and you're not okay.
Though remaining hidden at work, on Sundays, Helen was singing out against Section 28 with the Pink Singers.
One particular one was called Did You Know That? And it opened with different members of the choir singing a line. So the words we had, did you know that people like me are building your house? And then my line was, people like me are teaching your kids.
Did you know that people like me are building your homes? People like me are teaching your kids. People like me work at your bank.
And then it went on to, all the people in society, did you know that some of those are gay? And those sorts of messages were put across musically in a fun way. But it made me realise how important it was to put those messages across. I think it made me feel sort of proud and also, look, I'm me, I'm normal, I'm just another person, I'm a good teacher. You don't even know I'm gay, but yeah. I think the message was we are everywhere, we are in society, but the public need that to recognise that.
There was one performance in particular that I wanted to remind Helen of.
Oh, the Leaping Lesbians.
I'm showing Helen a video of the Pink Singers' 10-year anniversary concert in 1993. It's taking place at the London Lighthouse. 4 women are performing their choreographed version of Sue Fink's 1977 song, Leaping Lesbians.
It's a bit of a spoof on perceived ideas of, these lesbians are everywhere, they're going to get you, we're these weird creatures, these weird people, and we're going to creep up on you. So it's kind of a spoof.
Front and centre is Helen, pretending to search for these strange creatures, these leaping lesbians.
Oh, it's arm up in front of the eyes and casting my eyes around as though I'm some sort of evil person looking and searching.
This was exactly what the Pink Singers were all about, using music and performance to challenge stereotypes, whilst poking fun at the ridiculousness of those attitudes.
And I can remember, before Pink Singers, I would have felt very embarrassed even saying the word lesbian. It sounded like, it wasn't a polite word to say. It was such fun, and just feeling part of it, feeling part of this group. Thank goodness I found Pink Singers, and I found that music and being part of that community. And thank goodness I discovered that when I did. And I've had that to carry with me throughout the rest, during my life now. And I just want to go back there now. I want to see everybody again and sing with them all again and sing those songs again.
Helen was just one of many women who joined the Pink Singers throughout the 90s. There was Ricky, who went on to become the choir's chairperson. And there was Janet, Lynn, Rosie, who you heard from in episode 2, Jenny, Fran, Kim, as well as many others. In 1999, the Pink Singers welcomed Anna to the choir. She was the first trans woman to become a member. She went on to become the choir's chair too, shaping the Pinkies for future generations. You'll learn more about her in a future episode. And Barbara, who you heard about earlier, she continued to sing with the Pinkies until 1992. She passed away in 2011. As for my story, I joined the Pink Singers in 2014. I became part of the choir at a different time, but I can still relate to some of the stories we've heard about our women Pinkies throughout this episode. I felt so nervous when I joined, so it must have been completely terrifying for those first women to go along to a rehearsal in the early 80s and 90s when attitudes were much more condemning. I was lucky to find myself in a welcoming environment for all LGBTQ+ people, but those earlier women did not. That's not a proud moment in the Pink Singers' history. And when Helen spoke about her feeling the pressure to be butch, I could totally relate to that too. When I was coming out, I thought lesbians all had to have short hair and wear stereotypically masculine clothing. So I started dressing in checked shirts and I got a haircut. Despite the regular trips to shops like Superdry, a lesbian staple brand of the noughties, the reality is that I'm actually more feminine, and this just didn't feel right for me. But differently to Helen, who found herself feeling like an outsider amongst the other lesbians in the choir, it was the Pinkies who helped me feel more comfortable with myself. I'm glad to say the Pink Singers is now home to a range of women from different intersections. Butch, femme, somewhere in between, women of colour, lesbian women, trans women, asexual women, queer women, bisexual women, and women who are allies. We're all there. We welcome whoever walks through the door, and we all believe in fighting for our voices to be heard. We also join for a myriad of reasons.
But I think people come to choir to have a space to meet people like them, and so it's natural that you'll want to hang out with other queer women if you're a queer woman. I don't think that's a terrible thing.
Though, as my fellow Pink singer Zoe says, of course one reason has remained the same since 1983. Some women join the choir to meet other women, be that looking for friendship or looking for love. And that's because the state of society remains largely the same. When it comes to queer women's spaces, they are practically non-existent. In fact, the Pink Singers provided this very same opportunity to me. I met my wife, Charlie, here, We spent time together in the choir, and since then, we've been together for over 8 years. I wanted to hear Zoe's thoughts on where she feels the choir is at today. She's been a Pinkie for 13 years and has seen lots of change within this last decade. She wants the male Pinkies to continue to learn more about the experiences of people who are not cisgendered men.
The reason why we need to integrate, though, is sometimes to educate the men. It's sometimes like they don't understand our experiences, and so it would benefit them to speak to us. I feel like a lot of gay men haven't spent a lot of time around women, or especially queer women. I mean, I've had men in choir say things like, being in this choir is the first time I've met a lesbian. And it's like, no, it's not. You know, like, you've definitely met one, but sure, you know, we can have that experience for you. No lesbian has ever said to me, do you know what? I've never met a gay man. This is my first one in the choir.
Zoe hopes that with an ongoing level of understanding around shared experience, and as it grows and welcomes new members, the choir will continue to feel integrated for everyone. And she believes that the choir is committed to that.
The thing about the men in the choir is that they've chosen to join this choir. They could join a gay men's choir, and for whatever reason, they've decided it's important to them to be in this one. And I think sometimes that means that they're more interested in speaking to the women or building a community rather than just singing with 100 other gay men.
Both Zoe and I want to see more women and gender non-conforming people in senior roles within the choir's wider leadership and music teams. From my own experience, I know that this can affect everything from the artists whose songs we sing to the people we sing about and the stories we tell. It also affects the decisions we make in the choir more generally. Women are more likely to have caring responsibilities, and also they're more likely to be affected by chronic illness. It's important that we have women in these positions to ensure everyone is considered and all voices are heard. Though there have been many women and gender non-conforming people as chairs and other choir leadership roles, there has never been a permanent musical director who was something other than a cis man. No woman or gender non-conforming person has ever taken up that mantle. And soon they might have the opportunity to. The current musical director, Murray Hipkin, who has served the Pinkies for 13 years, is leaving the choir. Zoe is hoping that we might see a woman, trans or non-binary person taking up that role.
We've never had a female or non-binary MD, and I think that it should really be a priority in my mind to have one, just to represent, you know, half the choir is of those genders. So, yeah, I think that's something that's important to me in choosing the new MD.
But will that be the case?
Please, please, please find a way to get this into your daily life. Annoy the people in your office about it. Put your clothes away to it. Listen to it on the train. It's really important. That feeling that you have on stage when you don't know what you're doing is horrible. And I'm not saying that to panic you, I'm saying that to encourage you so that you have 5 weeks to let it not happen.
Sing It Pink, the story of the Pink Singers, is an Aunt Nell production. It was made possible by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. The presenter of episode 3 was Ali Milton-Doyle.
The archive was voiced by Annie Ring and Will Paxton.
The producer was Rachel Byrne.
The assistant producer was Marnie Woodmeade. The executive producers were Tash Walker and Adam Zmith. The executive producer for the Pink Singers was Chris Scales.
Audio mix was by David Pye. Special thanks to Michael Derrick, Sandy Wilson, Helen Johnson, Zoe Johannes, the Pink Singers, and Acast Studios.